Welcome again to the 2026 Travel Unity Virtual Spring Summit. We're very excited that everybody's joining us, whether you're here now or you're watching this later. I just want to say a thank you to our sponsors. Our sponsors include Los Angeles Tourism, Visit Syracuse, Travel Alliance Partnership, the New York Yankees, New Orleans and Company, and Nova HCM. Thank, thank you all for sponsoring this summit. Next, for those who are newer to Travel Unity, it is a nonprofit focused on making travel welcoming to everybody and making it inclusive for people of all backgrounds and identities and walks of life. This year, June, marks the 10th anniversary of Travel Unity. Um, Travel Unity it helps the travel industry kind of align with more inclusive practices and helps educate people about the breadth of the careers in the travel industry and helps create tools for people to make their communities more welcoming. If you're interested in getting involved in Travel Unity, you can consider volunteering, which most volunteers start with a case study or some kind of spotlight on about a travel professional. You can also join a working group, which are listed on the slide. Or if you just have any questions or want to get involved or have a chat with Ronnie, his email is on the screen, ronnie@travelunity.org. Um, and if you've registered on the ticket site, you're entered to win two New York Yankees tickets to a 2026 season game. Each ticket's worth about $320. And we will also be giving away a couple hardcover books of Stronger Together, Building a World-Changing Collaborations That Succeed by Nicole Mahoney. During the session, please use the chat to participate, and we encourage some questions and comments, especially at the end for our speakers. And if you're not yet part of the Travel Unity Alliance, please join. There's a link on the screen. There are individual and organizational memberships, as well as student and educator discounts at just $50 a year. This membership includes the ability to come to monthly Alliance meetings for free, wherever there are conversations like these throughout the year. Now just some schedule stuff. We just finished the Public Lands, Public Memory, American Stories at 2:50. So if you missed that, be sure to check out the video. And if you're registered, you get early access to the recordings. In a second, we'll start America, the Land I Still Love, Choosing and Building a Life in the US. On Wednesday, we have Innovation, Technology, and the Human Experience and the Future of the Travel Workforce. And finally, on Thursday, we have Local Action, How Your Voice Drives Community Change, and Caught in the Middle, Destinations in Uncertain Times. And now at this point, I'd like to invite Ronnie to kick off America, the Land I Still Love. Thank you.
Thank you, Elena. Elena is a student at one of our partner universities, Purdue. So thank you, Elena, for helping kick off both sessions today. All righty, here we go. I'd love our panelists to introduce themselves, and then you'll learn from them who they are, and hopefully that'll give you a sense of why I'm excited for each of them to participate. But yeah, we'll start by going with Vinci and then Monica, and then Florian can do his intro, and he's going to do a little deeper presentation because not only are they thoughtful people and immigrants and all that, but they're also subject matter experts in a variety of ways as well. So, Vinci, who are you? Why this topic? What's the deal?
Thank you, Ronnie. Can you all hear me fine? Okay, perfect. Well, first of all, thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to speak on this panel. I am the founder and executive director of RISE Travel Institute. We are a 501c3 nonprofit, and our mission is to make travel more just and equitable through travel education. And I'm also an adjunct faculty at Antioch University teaching human rights and mobility justice.
Monica.
Hi, good morning. Well, good afternoon. I am Monica. I am from Colombia, but I'm living in Pennsylvania. I am the leader of the marketing, communication, and visibility for a Pan-American network of institutions in hospitality, tourism, and gastronomy. We are a nonprofit organization that have more than 120 affiliates and in 20 countries of all Pan American. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Florian, who are you? And then from there, hopefully you're all set. You got your slides on your end, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, hello everyone. So my name is Florian Herman, and I'm the CEO of Herman Global. And yeah, so a little bit about myself. Like, I'm originally from Germany, came to this wonderful country 12 years ago, but my company, Herman Global, I started this company to help the lesser known destinations in the US to get international attention. We are really big on two things. We're very good on research and marketing as a company, but our biggest strength is really the authentic storytelling and marketing and how powerful it is. Being an immigrant, and living in the United States, I just became U.S. citizen last year. So that was very exciting for me. And I always see the lens always from the inside as well as from the outside, right? So, and today I just want to kind of give a little bit of an update on international. I make it before I send put any presentations up and slides. I just wanted to provide some things that's really interesting what's happening in the US, since a lot of the DMOs are here, but also organizations. We want to kind of look into how international inbound is doing this year, or it has been doing last year, and a little bit kind of the forecast, what we're seeing at, right? So the most important thing is, like, we had, when I look back into COVID, we had this big, before COVID, we had this big growth on international travel. It was just grow, double digits, especially with Asia and Europe and other markets. But of course, with COVID, that came all to a hold with inbound travel. And post-COVID, what really has changed, and that's kind of really interesting, what I want to kind of address also in this panel a little bit, is the international travelers that come from the outside. They're looking at the US a little bit differently. It's not just the big city sightseeing. It's just the traditional attractions of New York and Las Vegas to come, but they're more curious. And I think I feel this a little bit also on the younger generations. It's millennials and the Gen Z that really kind of want to hear stories. They want to learn more. They're curious, right? So what we have been seeing after COVID, more and more international travelers wanted to see the lesser known destinations. They're more curious about the road tripping. Of course, national parks, we discussed it in the session before a little bit. It's a very high interest. So of course, now people ask me a lot. I'm here also at a conference, how's it looking now? I think we had this kind of growth comeback, the big comeback in the USA, right, with international travel. But the comeback has softened and damped a little bit last year, and also continues a little bit of this year, even though we have the World Cup and all these great events that are happening in the USA. So that's a little bit my first initial thing that I wanted to share with you is, like, I'm here also for providing any Q&A, when people want to ask us questions in the panel. But the one message that I want to get across is from an international marketing forecast methodology point of view is that it always happens that we sometimes have setbacks. We had this in the history. We can, of course, discuss the setbacks, why they are, also as a group. But it looks always, we have to always think long term, right? So international travel is one that's highly affected. We see this, for example, right now in the Middle East with the Iran war as well. I mean, the people we just saw a news release. The tourism industry in the Middle East is losing $600 million every day right now. It's massive. 14% of all the flights are going through. But we also see that when things settle down, that international travel is coming back very strong, and that's the hope, right? So it grows back very fast on that as well. I'll leave it maybe from an intro by this. I have a few slides that I also can share a little bit more, kind of what I'm also, I'm currently at a conference with Great Lakes, what I'm presenting, what I see kind of happening with the high level trends. But I also wanted to kind of give it to the other ones as well, and feel free to ask us any questions.
Is there any, Florian, before we get to anybody else, is there any data, any sort of graphs that you think tell the story that you really want to share? If so, now's a good time. Otherwise, we can certainly just keep it verbal, however you want to do it.
Yeah, let's keep it verbal, because the conversation really is about, the US as a country, as a love. I think that from a data, one data point that I really wanted to kind of just share a little bit, like we are down visitation-wise when I look into Europe from last year, around, depending on each country, about 20 to 24%. So it's a significant decrease, right, on visitation and interest. That's a number that I kind of just wanted to share with everyone, where we see definitely the setback on this. I think from a visitation point of view, it's interesting, while the world has been growing on international travel, right? So we have seen, after the pandemic, growth every year. We see that US has actually seen the decline. And it's very interesting. It really has to do, and let's just call it out there, what the big headwinds are. It definitely has to do with the politics, right? We saw the tariffs last year that kind of made a lot of people upset, especially in the north of the country here, and also later on in Europe. Then also we had a lot of confusion about the immigration, how people come here, especially not just immigration, like border security and how to get through the process, how to get a visa approved. And there was just some negative news stories that kind of funneled throughout the year that somehow deterred the travelers to come into this country. So from a data point of view, we are about that number down right now. It's very hard to project right now how this year is going to look like. I mean, we have the World Cup, but just from the early numbers right now, we are currently a little bit slightly more down than last year. So that's kind of the short answer on that.
Thank you, Florian. As you said, this is, a personal session, but with people with some serious subject matter expertise as well. So I want to ask a question to you guys, and it's occurring to me that the direction of this might be different than I thought. And the question is about your feelings of safety, your feelings just in general, traveling the first times you came and visited the US versus now. Because when we had our prep call, there were discussions about, carrying passports and, and random checks and stuff like that. So I'd be curious, what has been that arc, your recollection of your experiences traveling around the US, whenever that earliest bit was, and what is it now? Yeah, anybody can start. Vinci?
Yeah, I can go. Yeah, so my answer to this would be there would be like three parts. So before I got the US citizenship, gosh, where do I even start? Talking about like 20, the years back in my 20s and 30s. First of all, I just a little background information. I was born and raised in Hong Kong and educated in Europe. And so between my 20s and 30s, I came to the US often due to my teaching and research career, and because I was a single Asian woman, crossing the US border at airports meant automatic extra questioning every single time. I was taken to a room, and had to wait there for an hour almost every time. And that's so every time I got stuck at the border, it was terrifying the first time, of course, because I didn't know what to expect. I was saying to myself, like, what have I done wrong? I didn't do anything. I did everything right. I never overstayed. I had my visa and my passport and support letter and my return flight, even my bank statement from home. But all the documents didn't matter. And they came for me every single time. And so over time, I became a regular, at this extra questioning room. And I learned how to navigate it. I even joked with officers, but holding that awareness that the comfort itself was a form of privilege because I knew I looked harmless to them and that I don't have a Hispanic or Arabic name or any foreign sounding. I mean, my name is definitely foreign sounding, but it's East Asian. It's usually perceived as less dangerous to the officers. So, but I know that not everyone can afford to be casual at the border. And then after 12 years of living here, I got my citizenship, and border crossing is much easier now because I'm a citizen. But I always look back at the long lines and I have a sense of discomfort or guilt, because, I remember that I've been there before. And the only difference is not because who I am, but because of my legal status that has changed. And that was the only thing. And fast forward to 2026, things have changed drastically in this country. Even with citizenship, I carry my passport every time I leave the house now, even for something as simple as walking my dogs, because you never know what happens. And my skin color and accent are not going to protect me when I need to prove my citizenship. So the current immigration policy is really making everyone feel vulnerable, whether you're an illegal immigrant or here legally. It really doesn't matter anymore.
Thanks, Vinci. Monica?
Yes, and I agree with Vinci. When I first came to United States like a visitor, like a tourist, well, everything was wonderful, everything was exciting, you see everything new, and you don't feel like in risk because you know that you come in and you go back to your country. But once you become to a resident or a citizenship, that perspective shifts or change because you start to understand the real cost of the living, the complexity of the systems, and the everyday challenge. So you are not visible like a tourist. You start to feel like you are living here that is totally different. Something that I really stand out is that the language is not only English, it's culture, the humor, the expressions, the thing that you don't learn in a classroom. Because I think that a lot of people study English, but when you come to live here in United States, I still don't laughing of the jokes because I don't understand the jokes. So I try, but I don't. And so it's something that you in a classroom you never learn. So that is the experience becomes deeper, more real, and sometimes more challenging. Um, and for example, I have a strong accent still, and I love it. So it's something that I don't want to change. But still, I try sometimes to don't speak too much when they are close the police or something because I don't want that they identify and they ask me different kind of questions or they ask me more. And it's something that I feel like I have all my papers, I am everything in rule, but still I think that will be uncomfortable, or maybe I can answer something that I don't need to say. So that will the difference.
Thanks.
Mhm.
Florian, people think, well, white guy, no problems, but that isn't accurate, right? From your experience in terms of the documentation side and all of that, right?
Yeah, like I've been here for 17 years, and I remember. So the first time I came to America, when I was visiting, especially I visited the first time Florida, and then also California, and I actually worked at a travel agency before. That's how I came here, and that's also I fell in love with the country and also the great destinations that we have. But I actually started studying in the USA. And after the studying, I did an internship in the USA. And of course, there was a lot of paperwork with the visa. First, you had that visa with the J1, and then you had the F1 visa and all these things. And of course, you had to always document everything. So every time you through immigration, like at an airport or CBP, it was intimidating for me as well because at the beginning, I just did not even know how to answer questions. You naturally answer questions just spontaneously. And I feel, and this is kind of what I also want to say, is like from the years 2006, 7, 8, these were years where I feel maybe CBP was a little bit more overwhelmed with immigration situations or like with the entry. But during the Obama administration, and Obama really made it a big effort to make sure that CBP is very well trained, and then also that all the people like the CBP and also through the immigration, there's a big welcome message somewhere whether it's on the screen to say welcome to the USA. And I believe it was a protocol at some point where they said every immigration officer needs to start the conversation with welcome to the USA, right? Just to kind of take a little bit maybe the fear and anxiety of the people. And I think there was really a good momentum with that. I also want to say from an immigration point of view, and I cannot speak really too much on the CBP on the back end, but there's a lot of automation that also is happening now, where it's pre-screening and getting the visas approved online, and then also going through the process now where they just take a picture on this. That somehow it feels on the one side maybe also feels anxiety because what if the technology doesn't work and there's a red flag and you don't know what the reason is, and it still causes a lot of anxiety. And I think from a visitation point of view, we definitely see a lot of people not feeling comfortable on two things. The one is having the process of the fear of being rejected, right, at the entry border, which does happen. Sometimes you're denied, right? It's not happening very often, but it does happen. And the media, of course, talks about it. And the other thing is, I think what the latest is now is that they ask you about your social media accounts. And I think from a European point of view, we are very big on privacy. And a lot of travelers, international travelers from US, do not agree to say you have access to my privacy with the social media account. So these are the things, the deterring elements that we really have to address and see how we can, I call it, make the best out of it.
Florian, is there anything else in terms of any stories where you've experienced stuff where pre or post citizenship in terms of, you know,
Mm-hmm.
navigating personally with officials?
No, not really. I mean, the story when I got it's a very normal process. I had first a student visa and then a J1 visa. And then later on, I had a work visa. I mean, it's just the process, right? For going from the one visa to the next. I mean, to do it the legal way, you will have a lot of visas and a lot of paperwork. I mean, everyone will tell you the same story. I think when it came then to the green card, right? So I think the conversation changed a little bit with the green card. Like, they took my fingerprints, of course, that time. And it took a little bit longer getting through when you had the green card application going through the CBP. I was always a little bit nervous because I don't know what they're gonna do, and I hear stories that are really bad. But I also have to say, with me, I really didn't have a bad experience. But the anxiety for sure is there because I hear it from other ones, and once you start researching the internet, that even causes more anxiety, right?
Thank you, Florian. All right, Vinci is an academic's academic, and I am giving her period of time to talk about the immigrant experience overall, because we have three people who are three very different people, but they're still only three people. So, Vinci, however you want us to frame this discussion about, the immigrant experience.
Thank you, Ronnie. I appreciate the framing of your question because there indeed is no single immigrant experience. And the three of us here on the panel are not representative of all the stories happening across America. So so immigrant experiences can be found on the spectrum, or basically the spectrum is shaped by power, identity, and circumstance. So first of all, not all migration happens under the same conditions, right? Like people move across borders for very different reasons with very different levels of choice, from highly voluntary mobility to forced displacement. And your experience can look very differently if you're a professional relocating for work. We usually call them expats. or if it's for family reunification, well, you don't even speak English at all, or if you're someone fleeing a war, political violence, or climate disasters. So, the experiences could look very different. And beyond the circumstances, the immigrant experience is also deeply structural. It is shaped by geopolitics, by colonial histories that then dictate the immigration laws and visa regimes, right? Like as a Hong Konger married to an American citizen, it took me just a few months to get the green card. It took me 3 years to get my citizenship. While for mainland Chinese, for example, the general wait for a green card is 10 years, right? And so it's not really about who we are. It's not about us. It's really about like how the systems determine how people move and where they belong and where they have no right to belong. And then your legal status shapes your everyday life as well once you're here. Like what Monica just said, right? Including your right to work, your access to healthcare, your barriers to education, access to opportunities, vulnerability to exploitation, and all those things that you have to navigate as an immigrant, let alone all the stereotypes against you, the societal pressures, discrimination, and microaggression. And another thing that I wanted to point out quickly is that the travel industry needs to be needs to pay more attention to immigration policies too, because right now, because of ICE's presence at the airports, if you're a brown, let's say, if you're a brown traveler running in a direction away from ICE agents just because you're trying to catch a plane, you will have a much higher risk of looking suspicious to ICE than if you are a white traveler, right? And so just put that in context. And all this right now is happening on a land with a deep colonial history to this day. And it is important for all of us, like all Americans, immigrants or not, to recognize that we're all settlers on Native Americans' lands. And hopefully that reminder will make us all like more humble. So I am trying to condense what it means by mobility justice in a very, very brief answer. So that's helpful.
Thank you, Vinci. And, since we had the prep call, literally ICE is now in airports in the US. So that is a new development over the course of us structuring this call. Vinci brought up the travel industry and workforce stuff. So I feel like, Monica, it'd be a good time for you to talk about your experiences and expertise in terms of challenges for immigrants in the workforce.
Yeah, sorry. Yes, that I text on important things about workforce. When I came here in United States, I work in a nonprofit that help to the immigrants, everything about workforce and education. So one of the biggest challenge to the immigrants face in the workforce is, or is that we often arrive with experience and education, but those are not always recognized and understood. So a lot of us, we have a lot of education, a lot of experience, but we need to start in the low level or the entry level because they don't recognize our studies or our certifications or college that we had. And so we need to, it's like a start over. It's like a start from the beginning. So I think one of the challenge is not about the language, it's about the communication and the cultural context, how you spread the ideas, how you interact. Even confidence can be interpreted differently. So if you are too confident, they say, oh, it's too difficult to find any job or any opportunity. Another challenge is starting over. So I don't know, but some of in the Latin or Hispanic community or immigrants, we are always in the field like housekeeping or warehouse or cleaning, so or restaurants field. So no matter if you studied or you have a lot of experience or studies, the Hispanic people is always like putting in that field. Um, there is also another challenge is many immigrants have to take roles below their experience level while they rebuild their careers. So it's like you need to start again. I start, for example, I have my master, but I never work like a professional or master. I start like a coordinator because I need to rebuild my career here. But everything represents to us an opportunity. The immigrants bring resilience, bring adaptability, because this is magic for us, because we adapt to all this new culture, to all these different kind of that works. The team working here is different. The system to work is totally different. How we work in our countries. Um, we're used to change, so that is good, and we value the skill that the organization need to like value that kind of a skill. How the immigrants can adapt in something different and difficult moments. Um, I think that the employers should understand is that the immigrant talent doesn't need to fit in. It needs to be understood. So behind an accent, there is an history. Behind a pause, there are someone thinking in two languages. I don't know, but I still translate. So I need my time to understand in English, translate in Spanish to answer in English. So it's something that is
Mhm.
not easy, but it's magic for the immigrants. And behind a non-linear career path, there are growth, strength, and adaptability.
Mhm.
So I think that one of the big ideas is the organization that embrace this don't just become more inclusive, they become stronger. So this is part of the inclusive is understand us too with all to our skills and our weaknesses.
Thank you,
Mhm.
Monica. So, Florian,
Yeah.
especially during, election years or right after elections, Americans will be like, "Oh, I'm gonna leave the country,"
Mhm.
and people would be like, "Germany, well, I'd love to live there." You have chosen to come to the U.S., and every time I hear you talking about your citizenship, there's this pride, there's an excitement. So, um, you certainly don't need to denigrate Germany,
Mhm.
but why the US? Why was Germany not the place for you to build this life that you are building in the midst of?
Yeah, thank you. That's a great story. And everything happens for a reason. Coming back, my very first experience coming back to the border patrol situation when I came to this country, what question do they ask when you come to the CBP station, right, at the airport? And they ask, so Florian, so tell me, why are you here today? Right? I mean, and then of course you have a reason why I study here, here's my papers or whatever it is, right? But I think it's a very deep question because there's a certain reason why I'm here today, why I chose it to be here in the USA and be a US citizen. And the short answer is really, I have to say, I fell in love with this country. Of course, I love Europe, and and my family is there, and Germany as well. But I really do a strong love for this country, and the reason why I love this because that's of the national parks, and that's what my life is about, promoting these to the world and all these great world communities. But really, it's the people. The people in the U.S. and whether it's in the cities or rural communities, they're so they're so diverse. And when you look into the world, there's probably not any other country at that scale that brings in so much diversity and also discussion about diversity than the US. And I feel the tourism industry really uh, reflects it well. And we actually do talk a lot about diversity and talk about the different cultures. And of course, we have still issues where we need to be better and do things better. But I think the world looks at, and including myself, why I came here is it's the land of opportunities. And I know it's not equal opportunity for everyone. right? I mean, I fully agree with this. I honestly think, and when I hear, the stories with Monica and Vinci is, um, I had a good experience coming here with the visa process, but not everyone does. Um, but what I really deeply care is about the US is that we do have the freedom of speech, the checks and balances, and we can speak up. And I feel when you speak up here in the US, your voice is heard, not by everyone, but your voice is heard. And I think that is less in Europe, not to stereotype it, but it's in as a US citizen, I think it's encouraged for you to vote. It's encouraged for you to speak up and voice your concern, right? And that's kind of why I really feel connected with this. And for example, when I now became a US citizen, for me is like, what is kind of my thing I really would like to do advocate, right? Like I never had these thoughts in Germany. And specifically with Germany, that's another thing that probably I will touch a little bit on it. The Germans are really in a weird situation with their history, right? We did not have a great history in the past. For a very long time, patriotism and pride of a country, being proud of a country, is perceived in Germany really weird, right? Versus here in the US, it's more, yes, we are proud of this country and we want to make it better. And there is this kind of energy and excitement of, I call it collaboration, especially in our industry, where we want to make things better. We listen to each other. And I know we are very polarized right now. I'm not going to discount that at all. We have a big polarization in this country. But I feel there is still this sense of people here that we have a lot of things we agree on. And that's really what draws me here. And I would love to radiate this also to other places in the world.
Thank you, Florian. So one thing that was really interesting to me as we did our prep call was finding out that all of you live in rural America. And, our work in Travel Unity started in New York City, and Lake Placid was one of the first places we started doing stuff with Roost, the DMO there. And it's something that MJ Lawrence, from the COO at Roost, said that I quote with regularity, which is 95% white doesn't need to mean 95% unwelcoming. So there are certainly, demographic differences in urban America and rural America. And yes, there's race and ethnicity, but there's also politics. So I'm just curious, Florian kind of glanced on it, but going back to Monica first, what is your experience as an immigrant living in rural America?
Living in what? Excuse me.
In rural America.
Okay. Yeah. I never think that I will live in a rural or in a country, but I think that I really enjoy because that is far to the drama, to the traffic, to the noise. So I really feel safety too, because I think that here is a little more protected, that I feel like I'm not all that kind of situation coming to this area. Um, and it's something that I made me feel comfortable, no matter if I need to drive 15 minutes or 20 minutes for the city or go 1 hour to Philadelphia. It's something that made me feel safety, if not be in the city. So
Vinci, what does it feel like for you to live in rural America as an immigrant?
Being someone who grew up in Hong Kong in tiny apartments, I definitely appreciate the space and the proximity to nature that I'm now enjoying in rural America. But I would say that yeah, I'm really happy to hear that Florian is, really appreciating his life or the receipt of citizenship here. I have a slightly different feeling about becoming a citizen. Um, again, as I said, I'm from Hong Kong. As much as I love my birth city, we have a lot of issues over there. So, but I moved to the US not because I wanted to, because I chose to live here. No, my life journey just brought me here. I didn't really have a choice. And I'd be honest that having lived in other countries, that are less consumerist, that guarantee healthcare as a human right, that criminalize political lobbying, political corruption, which we call lobbying here, and that this enfranchise certain voters. These are the things that I don't love about the U.S. But there are also things I deeply appreciate, including what Florian just said, like including the diversity of this population, the opportunities for entrepreneurship, creativity, and human connection. So it's not an either or question. It's really like, there are things that I don't love about this country, but there are things that I also deeply appreciate. And yeah, and I just think that like immigrants bring incredible strengths with them to this country, and which is what makes this country special. Not just talent and skills, but really, the different worldviews, that we bring that are so precious, that remind everyone that there isn't just one way of being, of thinking, or doing things.
Thanks, Vinci. Florian, I don't know if you want to share more because not only do you live in rural America, you work with rural America
Mhm.
constantly. So if there's anything else you want to say about rural America, feel free.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, overall, like I live in Wyoming, and Wyoming is a cowboy state. And I think the cowboy mentality is like, I saw the bumper sticker to say, it means like, it said like, welcome to Wyoming. I don't care how you did things back home, right? So this is kind of how Wyoming is in a ways. Please don't tell me what to do, right? It's a very libertarian state. And the people are also very grinded into this to say, I like, at least when I talk about Wyoming, right? I express my life and but they like, please don't bother me and we won't bother you. There's still kind of this rancher mentality in Wyoming. That's what I see a lot in the rural communities. The tourism, from a tourism point of view, it's very different. I think the tourism community collaborates extremely well also in Wyoming and other places. Um, but I think what I mean, maybe that's correct or not, but I feel everyone is interested in the green dollar, right, or the marketing dollar, right? Not the marketing dollar, the general dollar, to say, um, with tourism I can make money, right? So where you come from, or what your background is, we just want you to have a great experience, and I feel tourism in general does a really great job on this, in the rural communities. There's definitely stories where it's not that great. And I think us as an industry, it's really about helping on this, providing really good advocacy and also education, right? That tourism is actually something great. Like we have this in rural communities a lot. That doesn't mean like they just say no tourism is better than like tourism, right? So a lot of people say we don't want tourism, and it has gotten better. COVID was really hard on rural communities, rural America, with home pricing and people moving there and somehow changing the culture in rural communities. So there was a lot of the challenges where communities were not happy about tourism, how it was done, and the cost of living going up. And I think it tempered down a little bit, but we just have a lot more work to do on the educational side. That tourism is actually something good, and tourism can heal wounds, right? We have our tagline: "Travel can change the way we see the travel can change the way we see the world." Is really why we do what we do with rural America in marketing and tourism marketing, authentic storytelling, and it is always an uphill battle that people will see the value of tourism in the rural communities. And honestly, that's more of an American problem, I feel, because I do work with communities in Europe and other places in the world. And it's for them, tourism is like, we are here, we are ready, and come and visit us, right? But it's just interesting when you work in different places in the world on tourism marketing and try to get the right traveler to them to see if they even want it, right? But coming back to the international tourism, that's the last thing I say is I explain to rural communities, okay, if I can bring you a visitor that appreciates the destination the most and they spend the most money and stay pretty long, and I guarantee you they won't buy your house, would you invest in that visitor to come? And they all say yes. Well, guess what? That's an international traveler because they will not buy your home. And then I somehow start the conversation that actually tourism is wanted in these communities.
Thanks, Florian. All right, I'm inviting our attendees. If you have anything you want to say or ask, this is your chance. All right, I'm dropping a quote. Oh, Narissa? Yeah, please.
Yeah, I've been trying to. Hi, I'm Narissa Marbury. Thank you for sharing your perspective. I've been trying to figure out how to ask my question, but part of me struggles because I know Vinci had provided her double-sided perspective of the good and the bad based on her experience. And as a Native American, I have that same conflict. And what I'm curious about is it may be tricky for you to speak about others within your community, meaning outside the country, who may have been considering coming in, or even those who are currently in the US but haven't been blessed with citizenship yet. Like, has there been any discussions, grumblings, especially in today's environment, on second guessing their decision to be here?
Vinci? I think that was mostly for you.
Yeah, so due to the political situation in Hong Kong, like in recent years, I think since 2019, we see a mass exodus of Hong Kong people going elsewhere, like, immigrating to other countries. But the intake here in the US has always been low, comparing to other countries. Like a lot of Hong Kongers would emigrate to the UK or Canada, but like it has always been like more difficult, for folks from my home to immigrate here. And for people who are here, like going through the process, I've heard that some people have decided to go back home, because now, well, home doesn't look that bad. Like, look at what we were trying to flee, and now it's happening here as well. We were talking, Florian was talking about censorship, or like, social media profiling at borders. That's something that we experienced like in 2019 or since 2019, right? And so,
To
like,
clarify, we in this case is Hong Kong.
we as in Hong Kongers, yeah, from Hong Kong, yeah, sorry about that. And so, yeah, so now people look back and see and witnessing US actions in the world, and we're saying, oh shit, sorry, excuse my language, but like, oh, it's actually not too bad. It's not that bad, back home. And while like being here, we have to go through the process. We have to be afraid, like, going out just because we're Asians, and like having to, just thinking of that risk. Some people may think that it's better off to just, consider moving back to Hong Kong. But of course, there are also folks who want to stay here for a lot of different reasons. And for a lot of Asian citizens, a lot of citizens actually, unfortunately, voted for the government or policies that actually hurt their own people, and I think that is pretty common, also like across different minoritized communities as well. So that's something that we see a lot.
Thank you, Narissa. All right, I'm going to drop this. Oh,
Do I
Narissa,
have
go for it. Yeah.
time for a second question?
Yeah, go for it.
This one may be directed towards Florian, but Monica, definitely speak up if it's relevant for you. Florian, because you had mentioned you're in Wyoming and the work that you do, like last year I was in one of the neighboring states, Montana specifically. And so I just wonder, because during my time there, I was there for just a week for business, but there was a dichotomy. I don't even know if I said that word right, but like a dual-sided conflict within a very small town. I wasn't in Bozeman, but in a small town a couple hours away, where, for lack of a better phrase, there were progressives and then there were conservatives. And when there's an immigrant community that helps out to support the local businesses, how does that conflict show up from your perspective, and how does it get resolved, or is it not really a big issue at all? Because this was just me
Mhm.
looking outside in, just seeing the different personalities of the different residents of the town, because I like meeting people. So I was definitely talking to folks. But I'm just curious from a rural perspective if the immigrant population, because some destinations do purposely bring an influx in for different like seasonal purposes, but then their beliefs may not necessarily support the workforce that they bring in overall. So I'm just wondering if there's any true concern or conflict, or is it just me looking in and putting my own biases into the mix?
Mhm. Yeah, that's a great point, Narissa, and thank you. And I'm sorry you had the experience in the double-sided experience in Montana. I think what, and I can only speak for also my industry with the tourism and hospitality industry and the workforce. We desperately need workers and workforce in Wyoming. I can speak for Wyoming because I live there, but I'm sure other states are similar. And I think having immigrant workforce, hospitality workers, whatever it is very much needed. I think we usually, I mean, I can speak for my industry that our hospitality industry is pretty well trained in managing that workforce, but often the residents are not. And I feel, and I know people also that in Wyoming or also other states that are naturally afraid of whether I call it foreign people or people of different color. And I use the word afraid. They just did not have the experience on it based on their family situations or so on. And I think that is really much needed where how can we maybe also in schools, and I've never been to school in America, so I cannot speak how the situation is there, but how can we really train and educate people well to welcome all these different groups, right? Because that's where it starts with the young ages and education. If you have that in your childhood and you grew up with like someone who lives up in the city and sees all of people of different ethnic and backgrounds all the time, of course they are even excited when they see someone coming through the town, right? If that's not in rural America because it is more, let's say, a white population, I think there need to be better programs done. That's kind of what my answer would be to that. But I'm not the expert on the educational side. Someone else maybe can talk about that.
Monica, anything you wanted to add?
Yeah, I think that in this area, maybe it's something that I will see in the landscaping field or in the construction field, because a lot of the immigrants voluntarily return to their countries, or they was deported, and you know that the Latin community do a lot of this kind of jobs. So I think that that is something that maybe we will to see in this kind of time of the years, because that is jobs that maybe not everybody wants to do, but still they
Mm.
don't like us. So it's something that you need to say, you can stay here, but you do the job, but you need to come back to, so who will do the jobs? So it's something that I think that is something that we'll see here and in the warehouse and everything. About the small businesses, yes, it's Latin people around here need to close their restaurants or a small business, but not because they don't have clients. It's more for the scare, because they don't want or for the fear, because they don't want to feel that experience that the ICE or the police coming to do that and see their families hurts because they will be separate for these situations. So it's something that we are living around here.
Thank you. All right, I put a quote in chat. There's nothing wrong with America that cannot be cured by what's right with America. That was Bill Clinton in his first inaugural address. So, within the context of that, what do you see as the main challenges that we have, and how do we as a country citizens, immigrants, anybody who cares about the US for today, tomorrow, challenges and possible solutions, starting with Vinci.
Um, yes, I know that Florian is going to talk about divisiveness, which I also wanted to say, but the divisiveness in this country, not just across political divides, but within camps, within movements. I mean, that's something that is super important because if we don't learn how to dialogue and how to listen, we would never be able to get to understand each other. And I think the other thing, I'll be super quick, is support independent journalism because our media literacy is so important. There's a proliferation of misinformation and disinformation in this country, and knowing that our mainstream media is controlled by large corporations and political power, it's just important to be intentional about where we source our information and by supporting those outlets financially.
Thank you. Monica, challenges and possible solutions?
Yes, I think one of the biggest challenges is truly understanding each other. We live in very diverse country, but diversity alone is not enough. We need connection, empathy, and the willingness to listen. There are also challenges around access, opportunity, and inclusion, specifically for immigrants communities. But I also believe there is a huge opportunity if we create a space where people feel seen, heard, and valued. We can build a stronger community and a more inclusive society.
Thank you. Florian, you get the final word.
Yeah, and it was already said with the polarization divisiveness, which is definitely a very true statement. And it is mainly fueled through the social media. That's not going to sugarcoat it. Like for example, I mean, I'm still the dinosaur that I'm on Facebook a lot and Instagram, but I don't do TikTok much. But it's usually I'm a tourism marketer, and we work a lot with these platforms. And I do see travel content, but the majority of the content, and I don't even subscribe to, is fed by some kind of things that are happening that is politically charged. And that somehow gives us more division. And I don't know how this algorithm works, that it feeds me that information. Um, in my opinion, the solution would be two things. I think turn off your phone, is at least when you travel or just be outside in the mountains, be outdoors. Turn off your phone and just be with yourself, right? I think that probably gives you some peace on that. And the other thing is what I've been doing every day is really, I think for us Americans, it's great. I encourage Americans to travel more internationally. So many people don't travel internationally in America. And I think when you travel internationally, let's say when you go to Mexico, right, and you all of a sudden see how great the people in Mexico are, and that it's actually there are very safe places in Mexico where you really say, wow, I never thought this would be Mexico, but I just heard it from the news or wherever you hear it from. I think that would be the eye opener and healer in this to take down the polarization. Like the more we travel, the better the world will become, and that's 200% true.
Thank you, everybody. Thanks to our panelists, and thanks you to our attendees for coming today.